Okay, let's just jump right in. When you look at a business online, what is a single star actually worth? I mean, we see them absolutely everywhere, right? They sit there perfectly aligned next to restaurant names, software products, consulting firms, you name it. But have you ever stopped to think about the massive invisible weight carried by those little geometric shapes? To a customer, seeing a massive 4.8 right next to a business name is an immediate, powerful shortcut. Imagine you're rushing to decide between three different service providers. That 4.8 drastically reduces the time you need to evaluate your options. But why does this happen? Well, it all comes down to a psychological concept called cognitive offloading. Basically, your brain is constantly looking for ways to save energy, so it leans heavily on social proof. It trusts the aggregated experiences of hundreds of strangers to make a rapid judgment for you. You see the number, your brain says safe, and you click. But, that's just the human side of the equation. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking the digital hood off to look right at the engine. We're going to transition from how humans perceive a simple 5-star rating to how incredibly complex search engine algorithms process those exact same numbers entirely behind the scenes. To really understand this, we'll use the iceberg model today. We'll cover the power of star ratings, the search engine's view on reputation, decoding review sentiment in NLP, authority and the digital footprint, trusting the review source, and finally, what happens when reputation signals conflict.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the power of star ratings. So there is actually a pretty wild contrast here between the human experience and the machine experience. For a customer, as we just discussed, it's a quick decision-making shortcut driven by cognitive offloading. But for a search engine, it's extracting a strictly quantifiable input for its ranking ecosystem. The search engine doesn't feel trust, right? It calculates it mathematically. It uses those aggregated star scores as an extrinsic indicator of user experience to prioritize results within its relevant subroutines.
Ratings are incredibly powerful simply because they compress massive amounts of messy customer feedback into a clean, simple visual that drives clicks. Think of a local bakery or a popular project management software. You might have hundreds of totally different customer experiences, ranging from absolutely fantastic to completely mediocre, all boiled down into a single 4.7 score. But here's the catch. This score absolutely does not tell the complete story by itself. It works alongside review volume, recency, and the written text. It's a critical piece for sure, but ultimately it's just one part of a much wider reputation ecosystem.
Moving right along to Section 2, Search Engine's View on Reputation.
To an algorithm, your reputation isn't a feeling or general vibe. It is a rigid, composite set of digital signals. Search engines extract, normalize, and aggregate review-derived signals into a highly specific entity-level trust metric. Because rating systems differ so drastically across the internet, like some use stars, some use points, some use letter grades, the algorithm has to normalize all of this disparate data down to a common baseline. That's the only way it can accurately compare you against your competitors. Think of the content indexing workflow as a giant digital assembly line. Search systems don't just magically know about your 5 stars. First, they parse structured data, stuff like schema markup, hidden deep in the code of a web page. Then, they extract the specific entity. For example, they identify that the data belongs specifically to Main Street Coffee Shop in downtown Chicago. Finally, they map the review content directly to that coffee shop's entity record and store it in persistent index shards. If you weren't indexed properly, those stars essentially don't exist in the eyes of the machine. All right, let's dive into Section 3, Decoding Review Sentiment and NLP. Here's where it gets really interesting. Algorithms don't just look at the raw math of your aggregated score. They actually read the reviews. They categorize this qualitative feedback into positive, neutral, and negative buckets to refine your overall reputation signal. You could be sitting on a pristine 4.5-star rating, but if the algorithm detects a rising, hidden trend of negative sentiment in the actual text of those reviews, your perceived trustworthiness is going to silently take a hit. The stars might look great to a human, but the machine is reading the warning signs in the text.
Search engines act as highly advanced detectives here, using natural language processing, or NLP. They extract what's called sentiment polarity and aspect-based sentiment. In plain English, this means they link specific emotions to specific attributes of your business. They literally learn to link the word slow to your delivery service, or the word reliable to your product quality. Semantic analysis identifies these recurring themes so the algorithm can align your business with exactly what users are actually searching for.
Which brings us to Section 4, Authority and the Digital Footprint.
Think of your digital footprint as the contextual trail of breadcrumbs you leave across the entire web. It's the cumulative set of digital artifacts associated with your entity. And this matters immensely because this footprint either validates or completely undermines your star ratings. The search algorithm assesses footprint coherence. It's actively investigating whether your shiny star ratings actually make logical sense in the broader context of everything else being published about you online.
Algorithms absolutely demand corroboration, largely because they're constantly fighting spam and manipulation. They cross-reference your stars with professional websites, topical citations, media mentions, and backlink profiles. If your shiny 5-star rating is backed up by strong, independent authority signals across the web, the algorithm trusts you. It views your reputation as highly reliable and way less susceptible to manipulation. And the result? You get elevated search visibility.
Next up, Section 5, Trusting the Review Source. Search algorithms are ridiculously smart about spotting fake reviews. They compute trust scores for the reviewers themselves based on their behavioral history. They'll heavily scrutinize the reviewer's account age, cross-platform activity, and review diversity to flag coordinated or suspicious anomalies. So if a brand new account pops up out of nowhere and only leaves 5-star reviews for one specific company in a single day, yeah, anomaly detection systems are going to flag that data point immediately.
It really boils down to this fundamental reality. Not every review carries identical contextual value. You can't just buy a bunch of fake 5-star reviews and expect a massive rankings boost. Algorithms will actively discount feedback from low-trust sources during their calculations. A glowing review from a highly trusted, diverse, and aged account acts as a massive amplifier. Conversely, a review from a low-trust source might be completely suppressed and just totally ignored by the ranking engine.
Finally, we reach Section 6, when reputation signals conflict. So what happens when your stars say one thing, but your NLP sentiment or authority citations say something totally different? Well, the search system initiates confidence weighting. It essentially assigns probabilistic weights to try and figure out the truth. For example, say you have a sudden spike in low ratings, maybe from a viral social media misunderstanding, but you have historically high authority and stable backlink patterns. The algorithm performs a corroboration check and actually mitigates the negative influence of those bad reviews. But on the flip side, if you have artificially high ratings combined with deeply negative NLP themes in the text, you are absolutely going to experience extreme ranking volatility.
If you take absolutely anything away from this explainer today, let it be this. A strong digital footprint acts as a powerful shield against a temporary bad review or a coordinated attack. It literally buys you algorithmic patience. However, you cannot hide systemic issues from the machine forever. If your natural language processing sentiment shows persistent real-world negative themes, it will eventually erode your authority over time, dragging your search prominence right down with it.
So as we wrap up our journey from the surface-level human perception all the way down into the depths of entity indexing, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Your stars might be shining brightly today, but are they truly supported by the deep algorithmic ecosystem they need to survive long-term? Search systems demand corroboration. Is your digital footprint actually strong enough to back up your ratings? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to look at your own stars just a little bit differently from now on.